Close your eyes and picture an elephant. Really picture it. Chances are you're seeing the same thing I am. Large ears, wide and open like sails, long tusks, a massive body moving slowly across dry land, dust in the air, a horizon that feels almost endless. This image feels natural, obvious even, but it's not neutral. This is the elephant we were taught to imagine. I've loved elephants for as long as I can remember. As a child, I was obsessed. Books, documentaries, toy figurines. I memorized facts no one asked for. I rewatched the same scenes over and over just to watch how they moved, how they touched each other with their trunks, their customs, their culture even. Elephants felt ancient to me, emotional, intelligent. They felt like creatures that remembered things that we didn't. But even then, there was a difference in the ones I was drawn to. The elephants I loved the most weren't the ones everyone seemed to be talking about. They were Asian elephants. Smaller ears, softer silhouettes, lived in forests, by rivers, amongst people. I didn't have the language for it then, but something about them felt familiar. Not exotic, not distant, something close. At some point, I noticed something strange. When people say elephant, they don't mean all elephants. They mean one. The African elephant has become the elephant. In the elephant logos, in emojis, children's books, nature documentaries, in our collective imagination. Asian elephants exist everywhere. In history, religion, labor, memory, but rarely at the center. They are present, but not iconic. And I started wondering why. The obvious explanation is visual. African elephants, obviously larger. The ears are more dramatic. Their tusks are more pronounced. They live in open plains, under wide skies, easy to film, easy to photograph, easy to mythologize. They fit perfectly into a fantasy of untouched wilderness. That image was cemented during the colonial era, through safaris, big game hunting, natural history museums, and wildlife films made for Western audiences. Africa was framed as the last great wild space, and African elephants became the symbol. On the surface, this explanation makes sense, but it didn't fully explain what was bothering me. So I kept reading. Asian elephants didn't live far away from people. They lived with people. They were used in labor, they were used in warfare, ceremony, construction, in empire. They moved through forests instead of plains. They didn't perform grandeur from a distance. They existed in proximity. And somewhere along the way, they stopped being seen as wonders and started being seen as part of the background. It's like the closer something is to us, the harder it is to mythologize. Familiarity doesn't inspire awe. It produces expectation. Asian elephants didn't disappear. They became useful. At some point, I realized I wasn't really thinking about elephants anymore. I was thinking about usefulness, about proximity, about what happens when something is everywhere but never centered, about what happens when endurance is mistaken for consent, and that's when a discomfort set in. And here's my take. Asian elephants are treated in the same way that brown bodies usually are. Present, but rarely foregrounded. Familiar, but never fully seen. Valued for function, not for wonder. In Western media, brown bodies are really allowed to just exist. Where workers, migrants, taxi drivers, shopkeepers, service staff, or we're something else entirely. A threat, a terrorist, the extremist, the unassimilated, the body that doesn't belong. We're either useful or dangerous, and sometimes both. Rarely complex, rarely ordinary, rarely deserving of softness. I want to pause here because this doesn't stop with brown bodies, and it would be dishonest to talk about visibility, spectacle, and usefulness without acknowledging how deeply these ideas have shaped the way black bodies are seen. Not by equating experiences, but by recognizing a shared structure of looking. African elephants are admired for their strength, their size, their power, their physical presence. They're filmed as awe-inspiring, overwhelming, almost superhuman. And that language, strength, dominance, physicality, is painfully familiar in the way black bodies are represented, especially black male bodies. They are praised for athleticism, for endurance, for physical power. And just as often, they're feared for the very same reasons. Strength becomes threat. Presence becomes danger. Visibility turns into surveillance. The body is no longer just a body. It is a site of projection. Jordan Peele's Get Out makes this explicit. The horror of the film isn't hatred, it's desire. White liberal fascination with black bodies. Their genetics, their strength, their perceived natural abilities. The black body is not rejected. It's coveted, consumed, replaced from the inside. In Get Out, the problem isn't invisibility. It's fetishization. Being seen too much, but never as human. And that's the other side of spectacle. African elephants and Asian elephants are positioned differently, just like black and brown bodies are. One is mythologized, the other is normalized. One is fetishized, the other is managed. But both are trapped inside a system that refuses full interiority. One is turned into a symbol, the other into a function. Different violences, same logic. Brown bodies are allowed visibility only under certain conditions. If we assimilate, if we perform gratitude, if we remain quiet, if we're palatable, and if we don't, we become suspicious. Too religious, too cultural, too foreign, too angry, too much. Our proximity makes us legible, but not worthy. Like Asian elephants, we are close enough to be managed, but never distant enough to be romanticized. We are praised for resilience, for hard work, for patience, for family values, for endurance. Asian elephants are praised in the same way. Gentle, calm, patient, obedient. But praise isn't neutral. Praise can be a way of keeping something in its place. African elephants are allowed spectacle. Asian elephants are allowed survival. Some bodies get to be wild. Others are expected to endure. If I asked you again to picture an elephant, would it look the same? Or would it hesitate just slightly before forming? Maybe what we overlook isn't less magnificent. Maybe it's just too close to be mythic. Maybe this was never just about elephants. Maybe it's about who we allow to be seen as worthy of awe, and who we only learn to notice when they disappear, or when they become a problem.